It's been reported that this information about an impending Iranian or Iran-backed proxy strike on American interests in the Middle East was forwarded on from Israeli intelligence onto the Americans, and then Bolton went public with the statement underlining American deterrence and American resolve to push back on Iran. Another thing to keep in mind, however, is May 8th. That's the one-year anniversary of the U.S. withdrawal from the JCPOA nuclear deal. And in the run-up to this anniversary, you've seen the Americans step up the pressure, diplomatic, military, informational even, against the Islamic Republic. There was the designation of the IRGC, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a formal arm of its military, as a foreign terrorist organization. That's a historic first, as well as a decision to withdraw all oil waivers and enforce those sanctions. So this is naturally the next step for pressure and deterrence against Iran.
And if the desired effect coming from the United States is to send a strong message to Iran not to mess around, not to go forward with any provocations, do you think it will have the desired effect, or does it risk perhaps additional moves from Iran?
Well, Iran always does love to reciprocate tit for tat. In fact, in 2012, Iran's supreme leader said exactly this, that Iran will respond to threats with threats of its own. But when you look at Iranian national security decision-making and Iranian behavior in the region, they are very, very cognizant of American military red lines and threshold for the uses of force. So Iran likes to, up the rhetorical ante to get money because of increased oil prices, however briefly, but it seldom, if not ever, carries through on some of these threats, particularly when it comes to the more severe ones, such as closing the Straits of Hormuz. This message, again, in my view, is to get Iran to back down. And when you have overwhelming military force, Iran does tend to back down, as it did at the end of the Iran-Iraq War and as it did at the start of the U.S.-backed Iraq War in 2003.
Are we perhaps reading too much into this deployment, Behnam? Because the reason I ask you that is that there's some analysis from the Rand Corporation saying that the U.S. routinely deploys carriers to the Gulf as a show of force intended to deter Iran. The DoD recently varied carrier presence in a bid to be operationally unpredictable, and the chances are this deployment has been long planned. Is that an assumption that you, or a view that you agree with?
I do think that these assumptions and these analyses are actually not mutually contradictory. When you look at U.S. force posture in the region, traditionally we have always had one aircraft carrier since 9/11 in the Persian Gulf to support U.S. military operations and contingency planning overseas. That being said, there has been an 8.5-month lag under the Trump administration in 2018, particularly at key flashpoints such as the U.S. withdrawal from the deal in May of last year and the U.S. decision to impose oil sanctions of November of last year, when there were not one but 0 aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf. So I think the decision now is a course correction of what happened in 2018, as well as something consistent with longer-term force posture reviews and planning that DoD does habitually undertake. So I think this is politics and policy coming together here very nicely.